Okay.
We're on? All right. Good evening. It is 7 p.m. on August 26th. This is the Lunenburg Finance Committee, and I am calling this meeting to order. At the request of one of our members, I would like to propose that we have a brief moment of silence this evening to commemorate the loss of 12 U.S. service members and over 60 Afghani citizens who were killed today in violence outside of the Kabul airport. If we could stand and just take a moment. Thank you. Does anyone have any announcements? Okay. Is there any public comment? Any public comment from the board, I should ask first? Any public comment from the public? And we have nobody on Zoom right now other than myself and the PAC. I should have recalled that I needed to read the preamble, so I will do that now. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel and on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page. The following information is also provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, please use the Zoom app with meeting ID 89466989282, or from a telephone, dial 888-475-4499 with the webinar ID, the same number, 89466989282, but then add the pound sign. If you're not registered, you'll be asked for a name and an email address. There's no participant ID required. Then just press pound when asked. Telephone users may also dial *9 to request to speak, effectively raising your hand in the Zoom meeting. Please note that the available Zoom option is for the convenience of the public. If any technical difficulties were to occur with the Zoom, the meeting will continue. If you wish to continue to participate, you should report to the location on this notice. We are at Lunenburg Town Hall on the second floor. Please be aware of this and plan accordingly. The agenda lists all topics that may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as the result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. Okay. Seeing nobody else in the room, either on Zoom or in the room, I will move past public comment and invite the finance director. Good evening.
Good evening.
So the finance director made a report to the select board on Tuesday night, and I distributed a link to that report from our share drive earlier today via email. And I would ask Karen to report on that if you would like, or any other matters that may be on your hot list.
Do you want me to go through the whole? Okay. All right. All right. Good.
Because tune in to Tuesday night's meeting if you would like all the gory details.
No, good. Well, as you know, those of you that saw the select board's meeting the other night, the town of Lunenburg had a very good year on both the revenue and expenditure side. Overall, our revenues exceeded our estimates by 2.2%, or a total of $935,001. The majority of that was made up from increases in our local receipts for estimated versus actual. And one of the things that I did say to the board on Tuesday night was, because that was the whole beginning of the pandemic and everything, when we went into town meeting, we were very conservative with all of our estimates, not knowing what was going to happen with revenue. And as a result of that, like I said, we actually had $590,516 more in local receipts versus what was estimated. And I think also within fiscal '21, because of some of the changes that occurred because of COVID, where we were allowed to push back due dates on, not the due dates, but push back collection on certain bills like motor vehicle excise and real estate taxes. Because of that, we saw increases in our motor vehicle excise revenue in FY '21, because originally when that legislation was pushed through, what it did was it pushed the due dates of the bills up to the end of June of 2020. I mean, the interest that would have accrued on the bills, if they were late, were still collectible, but they weren't due until the end of June. So as a result of that, we realized most of that revenue in FY '21. So we had a pretty significant increase in our motor vehicle excise collections, $307,000 over estimate. We had a significant increase in our penalties and interest estimate of $104,000. So, I mean, basically, those are the two big ones that make up that surplus that we had on local receipts. Motor vehicle excise, again, we collected, our taxes, we collected 99.7% of our levy, but we also collected $220,774 in tax lien revenue. So as a result of that, our collections for our levy exceeded our estimate by about 0.47%. And on state aid, we actually exceeded estimates, and the primary reason for that was we received a zoning incentive payment in FY '21 for the new building at the Tri-Town apartment complex, and we also received $44,000 more in 40S reimbursement from the state.
40S.
That's that smart growth money that we get, and that's a result of the buildings as well, so. And then on the expenditure side, we closed out 2.9% of budgeted appropriations, and the closeout represented $1,249,000. And I provided you with a breakdown of each one of the appropriations and how much was closed out for each one. And then the end result of all of this is that right at this point in time, free cash I would estimate to be $2,675,000, which is an increase of $871,494 from last year's certified free cash.
So the 1.249 in essentially
Appropriation
budget level
closeouts, yeah.
that strikes me as higher than what we've seen in previous years.
You know, and that's what I thought too when I originally saw the number. So I looked back at FY '20 and what was closed out, and it was within $7,000 of what was closed out in FY '21. I think we might have seen a shift in where the dollars were closed out, but the overall bottom line appropriation closeout was just about the same.
So one of the questions that I asked the town manager in my first week as a member of the finance committee was, are we intentionally budgeting free cash creation? So, and before you answer, I'll tell you her answer was no. So, and my thinking at the time was that, you know, we may be putting money into budgetary items that we know are unlikely to be fully expended. But in doing so, we're creating a flow of free cash that we then would be using for capital purposes, which I think I would understand. And this is all theoretical. I understand that We're not necessarily intentionally doing that. But the effect of it is that $1 taxed today actually gets spent in 2023. Because
Right.
you have to go through the free cash
Right.
certification.
Right.
You have to go to the following town meeting, that gets appropriated for the following fiscal year.
Right.
And all of a sudden, your dollar is just sitting on the town books for 2 years. And in my mind, I'd rather spend the dollar today than in 2023, particularly in a year, when I asked the question, when we were in a tight budget year.
Yep.
My feeling is, I still wonder about, are we budgeting as conservatively as we should be budgeting in certain areas? And I'm curious as to whether we're replicating unspent funds in certain lines from a year-to-year basis. But but what I think this would lead to, you know, I recall years where there have been taxpayers who have spoken up at town meeting and said, do we have to levy to the limit every year?
Right.
And when you're consistently generating, you know, well over $1 million in free cash, I think at some point, that question it seems to get increasingly more valid every year.
Well, and that's definitely, I mean, that would be a policy decision that was made at the time that the budgets were set. I mean, I've been around forever, and there were a number of years that we did not levy to the capacity. And then when things kind of got tighter for us, we began to levy to the capacity, and we always have now. We always have levied to the capacity, leaving small amounts, unless there's like if we had our annual town meeting and there was a huge change in new growth or something like that, and we didn't have the need to fund, or to use that capacity, then we could leave that there. But I don't think that it's intentionally budgeting to generate free cash. I think there's things, if you look at the different lines within the budget appropriation, there are certain factors that happen that are unknown at the time that the budget is set that create the surpluses in appropriations. And from my perspective on the revenue side, not so much levying to the capacity, because like I said, that would be a decision that the board members and Heather as the town manager would have to make, that we chose not to do that. But in my opinion, for local receipts, it's always good to be conservative, only because they're so economy dependent that you're better off to be conservative with the estimates and have a surplus, because the flip side of that would be if you budgeted and didn't meet those estimates, you would have a revenue
Yeah, no, I'm in
deficit that
total
you
agreement.
would
I
be required to
completely-
raise.
You know, most of us were here last year when we had a discussion around local receipts budgeting. That was sound decision-making, although it turned out to be more conservative than we needed to be. I'm totally fine with that decision. But I have this thing in the, you know, like.
No,
it
and
just feels
I understand
and
that
by the way,
totally.
the benefit is we've got a lot of money in free cash, and we're able to fund a substantial part of our capital plan, and we've got a special purpose stabilization account that when he needs a new fire truck, we're gonna be able to buy. You
Well,
know,
and
like,
you-
I mean, there's benefits of that. So-
And years back, larger ticket capital items, we would have to borrow for and bear those interest costs. And plus, not even that, but then it's built into the budget until the debt is paid down. So, I mean, on the revenue side, I totally agree with you on the levy capacity situation, but I would keep the local receipts as conservative as possible. And then on the state aid, I mean, once you get your cherry sheet, that's supposedly what you get, but we always have certain things that
We did have
happen
some-
that.
We had some charges on the cherry sheets last year that were in excess of what we anticipated as well.
Right, the cherry sheet charges were $55,000 over what was estimated.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a couple of quick questions, I think. I think they're quick. So on the, I think your comment on the local receipts was that there was spillover into 2021 from what you would have expected to collect in 2020, is that right?
Right, and.
So it's kind of just a shift from 2020 to 2021?
Well, I wouldn't say all of it is, but definitely a portion of it would be. I would say probably at least half of the increases you see in like penalties and interest and motor vehicle excise would be a direct result of that legislation that allowed that money to
Got it.
shift from 20 to 21.
So it's not something we would expect year over year?
No.
This is a one-time?
No, but although I mean, in all fairness, I will say that we typically do exceed our motor vehicle excise estimates. And what we have been doing, and the rest of the committee knows this, I believe, is increasing our motor vehicle excise by $50,000 a year in order to increase our pavement management money in the general highway budget, so that the thought process was that that would build up to be enough to maintain everything that we've done with the pavement management debt exclusion that we authorized. So I think the thought was to get that to $1 million on an annual basis, so that between that and our Chapter 90 funds, we would be able to keep our roads maintained.
And then my second question, just on the closeouts, and I'm new to the committee, so please bear with me. But on the, so I'm just looking like group health insurance, 246,000 under the budget. Is that an accrual based, or is that cash based?
That's-
That 246?
That 246 is cash-based.
Cash based?
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
so we're not accruing other things, other liabilities or anything, okay.
And that 246, I mean, that is directly driven by, I think what happened, the reason why you're seeing such a big, not, I shouldn't say big, because the appropriation is rather large, but the reason why you're seeing that surplus, I think, is probably directly related to COVID as well, because we had intended to hire people, and we never went through that process. So they were in the original budget, but the placements never happened.
Is any of that attributable to the premium holidays?
I don't think it was for FY '21, because we knew about that up front. We budgeted for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Awesome. Anything else from the town
I don't think,
manager?
well, I mean, we did receive, we received our county portion of the ARPA funds. So I don't even, I wish I had it with me. I don't have it written down, but it was over $1 million. So between the town's allocation of the ARPA funds and the county's allocation of the ARPA funds, the total is about, I think, $3.5 million. But we have received the first half of the towns and the first half of the county, and we'll receive the second half of each one of those 1 year out. And now we just have to make a decision as to how we want to allocate
And I
those
mentioned at
funds.
the last meeting, I intended to put that as a recurring old business item on the agenda. I didn't do it this week. It was an oversight on my part, but with the town manager not here tonight, it's kind of a wash. So,
It's too bad because, I mean, obviously they're dedicated funds, but typically even if you have a special revenue, if you have a grant fund or something that you get from the state, if they pay you the money up front, the interest that's earned doesn't stay with the grant, it becomes general fund interest, but with this, because it's federal funding, it stays with the money. So I was thinking, geez, we'll make a whole bunch of, no, well, I shouldn't say a whole bunch of interest now, because interest rates are way down, but it would have been something.
Was the, we also came under estimates on interest and investment income.
Yeah, and that's a
Is that an
direct
interest
result
rate?
of, yes, absolutely. It dropped to probably 2/3 from what we were getting versus what we ended up getting in FY '21. So I think, you know, even for FY '22, once we put those numbers together, we're gonna have to reduce that estimate, because we're not gonna see, we're obviously not gonna see what was originally estimated in FY '21. I would love,
Anticipate that'll be part of a budget adjustment for special town meeting.
well, the local receipts are, like, we have the number for the local receipts. I think we level funded with the exception of the 50,000 for the highway. But we have the ability, as long as the bottom line doesn't change, to shift the dollars where they need to be in order to get to that
So
estimate.
we'll have the revenue.
But, I mean, that would be another thing that we could do now, knowing that we're looking at a deficit right now because of the way that the cherry sheet came in, is one of the things that Heather could consider doing is increasing our local receipt estimate to make up for that shortfall. But that's, I would never say,
That's what, yeah.
I don't think that's what we should do, but it could be done.
Possible.
It's a possibility.
Do you know when we expect to call it a draft plan for those ARPA funds? What projects will?
I know that, well, we had a meeting, Heather had a meeting with the department heads, maybe a month or so ago? And, but there's been no firm decisions made as to what we're gonna do, and I'm sure that she would appreciate the input of the committee as well, so. Because we have to make a determination as to what we wanna do with it, and then one of the things that I would strongly recommend is that we reach out to the US Treasury, because all this money is, the guidance all comes from the US Treasury and not the state, like the CARES Act money, just to make sure that whatever we're trying to do is eligible before we jump the gun and start spending the money.
And that guidance has a tendency to change over time.
Oh, my God, all of the guidance for all of this has changed probably weekly.
Okay. All right, thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Where's my agenda? Next up, Sullivan. Evening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. So, Chief, as you know, you've done this with us at least once before, and we did it a couple of years ago. Last week, we had DPW and the police chief in. Tonight, we have yourself and Mrs. Doherty here. And this is sort of an open, it's an agenda item, but it's a no agenda discussion. So, it's kind of open. We'd appreciate your comments in particular around the ins and outs of the department with respect to budget, and also, what you're anticipating for topics of discussion come budget season. And whatever else you think is pertinent, and I'm sure we'll have lots of questions.
Okay. I guess my first thing, and I've sung this song before, is recruitment and retention. The 5-year plan for us would be another full-time staff next year. Again, we've had trouble trying to draw paramedics in from outside. We're still spending money training them ourselves. We are not competitive schedule-wise and salary-wise. We're in negotiations at this time with the union, but that is not settled yet. But as an example, I've got 2 call firefighters one is in paramedic school, one completed and is a certified paramedic. He went to a larger department, better money, better schedule. The younger one, who's in school, went to, again, another department, they're $4 an hour more to start than us, and a better schedule. Granted, it's a much more affluent community east of here, but it's a challenge we keep running into.
And are we able to recoup that investment?
Those guys, we didn't pay anything for that. They did that on their own. So we have one member that's completed training, is a certified paramedic. The other one is in his testing phase. So hopefully after that, we'll have 2, and then we can start moving. Number 3 is starting her training next month, and then number 4 will be starting sometime next year. And that at this stage. And we're moving along. COVID put us 6 to 8 months behind because it cut back on when they could train and get into the hospitals. And I don't know what this fall is going to look like, the way things are going, if that's going to affect us again on these programs or not. So that's one of the bigger issues for me, is just being able to attract and to retain people. And that I want, we have an agreement when these people get certified that they have to pay back up to 3 years. They have to pay back a portion of it. After that, they're free and clear. And I would hope that we hang on to them, try to make it a pleasant place to work, maintain good morale, but I don't have total control over salaries and stuff like that. And that we run up against that wall. And we're not the only town in that situation. Paramedics are a tough commodity right now in that, but it is an issue.
When does that contract,
It's already, they're working on a 2-year contract.
they're working on that one now? Good.
So we're still in negotiations on that right now. As far as the ALS equipment, we have it all, between either the capital funding or CARES Act money. There's a little bit of capital money that we're sitting on, mostly just when we can finally get the license and start moving forward to buy the initial outlay of meds. But I don't want to buy any of that stuff because it could expire by the time we finally get it going and that. But we, the hardware, we have it.
How does that work with the certification?
We're certified to the advanced level right now, which is, there's 3 levels:
Right.
basic, advanced, paramedic. We're certified to the advanced level now. Once I have the 2 people, I'm going to apply for the license, and within 3 years, we have to show that we can provide paramedic 24/7.
All right, so we're more or less on schedule.
We're on schedule, we're about a year behind where I would like to be, but that's
But
been.
from where
beyond-
you briefed us a year ago, we're about where we
Yeah, it's, a couple things have been moving slower than I would have liked, but beyond my control on any of that stuff. We're just between dealing with COVID, slowdowns in the people's training programs, that's made it a little slower than I'd like to have seen, but I'm always an optimist. We're getting there. On apparatus and capital equipment, we're not in bad shape. As we finally replaced 2 of the bigger trucks. The next big truck isn't due until 2027 on the capital plan. That truck would be 20 years old then. One of the things I threw in for the ARPA funds was a suggestion to replace Rescue 1. That's the 2014 ambulance, it's the backup. That truck hasn't held up as well as I would have liked. It's not scheduled till like 2026, 27. I made a suggestion that we look at replacing that early and I have yet to, we haven't made a decision. I gave the town manager a working number, and I'm waiting to hear back on a solid number, basically just to take the ambulance that we have now, the newer truck, and, okay, give us a newer version of that.
What are the failures on that?
It's when we went with that truck, that was the larger, heavier duty Navistar chassis. The plan was to get 12 years out of that. They don't make that chassis anymore. There's a reason. We haven't had a lot of good, it's been maintenance intensive. It's not so bad now that it's the backup truck, but honestly, I consider it a failed experiment. The truck we're running right now is an F-550. That seems to be holding up a lot better, except for when it got hit by a drunk driver in Leominster. And other than that, it's been doing very well. And that's the kind of truck we would look at. But definitely, I don't think we're going to see more than a 10-year lifespan on an ambulance. The 2014 has got over 84 to 86,000 miles on it already. The 2019, which is not quite 2 years old, and it was out of service for 3 months, has got 22 on it already. Because what we're seeing is more critical patients, we're going to Worcester with them. And we'll see that even more with paramedics. We'll be taking them down to Worcester instead of one of the local facilities. We're just running into that more and more. So we're definitely cranking some more mileage on it. Plus, we're busier. So, and my thought would be there is we would retain, as the plan was originally to replace that truck, retain that truck, replace the 23-year-old ambulance that functions as our water rescue truck right now. It wouldn't have to be, it has to be maintained, obviously, but doesn't have to be kept to the same standard as if it's an ambulance. And that truck would probably work several years filling in as that water rescue truck. The 23-year-old one is doing well, but it's 23 years old. and it's getting a little challenging to find parts for it. So, my final thing I'll point out, and I'll mention, is capital facilities, the building. I know a lot of people think the public safety building's new. It's 17 years old, and we're running into some issues with that building. You may have heard it from facilities. We're currently dealing with a mold issue in the training room that also doubles as our EOC. The main reason we're dealing with that is because of ongoing issues with the HVAC system in there that's created that situation. They're trying to deal with that. We have sprinkler piping that's leaking, that we've got part of the sprinkler system shut down in the fire station. Anybody else, we'd probably be writing them up for that. But we're waiting on the company to fix it. And talking to the facilities guys, the problem is when they built the building, they used the thinnest schedule pipe they could get away with, and now it's starting to rot through. We're going to continue to see that. I've given a video to the DPW director of how much cold air comes in around the windows that were installed in that building. It's probably not going to be my issue down the road, but I just want to put that on people's radar when they see things coming from facilities. That building, it's not new anymore, and it needs some help. And my only other thing I would throw out with that is in the future is buildings are being built. Sometimes it's better to spend a little more money up front and you save a lot more money down the road. Going back the better part of 20 years with the process of building that building, there was a lot of people who didn't want to see it built. We kept it to a certain dollar figure, but unfortunately now, my opinion, it's biting us in the butt. It's coming back to haunt us because there were things that were kept cheap on it. Like I said, the heating system has never been right. We're still trying to fix that right. This problem with the sprinkler systems, I think there's been discussions with the Green Community Committee about the heating costs in that building. Again, you know, I think we have R-5 value windows that we lose a lot of heat from. And that, there's stuff that probably could have been done a little bit better on that building back in the day that, yeah, it would have cost a little more money then, but I think we'd be recouping that cost fivefold now. And again, it's not particularly that building, I would just throw that out, thinking down the road as other buildings come up, that, you know, we need to, sometimes low bid and the cheapest thing isn't the best thing.
Do we have a roll-up of what it would take to bring that building back to where it ought to be? With respect to the HVAC and.
They're working on it, they're replacing the chiller, they're playing catch-up, I don't think we have a total dollar figure on it. I've given stuff out, there's some stuff coming up on capital for that building. Some of that stuff probably should have been a few years ago. It was brought forward, it never moved. Now, it's getting the attention that it needs. And again, it's a bigger challenge too, if we have one facilities guy for the entire town side of the building. And that man goes like a one-arm paper hanger. And that we had two people not that long ago. They're trying to get a second person in, but that man, there's only so much he can do in the day. And he's got his hands full. And again, it's after people, the next biggest investment in the town is probably its facilities and its capital equipment. And that's something globally, not just our building, that I think people have got to think about down the road.
Yeah, it'd be good to see the punch list of all the items that you think
We can
into the
certainly put
five.
one together, because we've
Into
been
the plan.
talking to them on it, but those are the big ones that have been, you know, they're in the process of trying to correct the heating system issue, but a lot of that goes back to the control system. Some of it's the control system. But anyway, the control system, it can be accessed remotely. You can only do it on Microsoft Explorer. That's how old it is. It doesn't like Firefox or Chrome. So they got to look at updating that. And again, I'm not the person, I'm not a facilities guy, you know, and that they would have better answers on that, but I know they're trying to address it. The sprinkler system, we're waiting on the contractor to come in and fix the pipe. They said they'd be out in a week, that was 2 weeks ago. I know they're on them and trying to deal with it. Certainly not complaining about any of our staff, they're doing the best they can, but like everything else, trying to get people to come out and do something.
I mean, we were just talking about ARPA funds, and in my mind, this is like, okay, well, should we be thinking about ARPA funds? We should be thinking about it, in my view, with two sides. Number one is quality of life in Lunenburg. What can we do to enhance the lives of the citizens in town with one-time windfall money? And the other is what can we do to make investments in our town and our financial condition that is going to save us down the road, right? I was around when that building was built, and I was, one of those people that was encouraging you to be conservative. And the reason being is we were not in the financial condition then than we are now. We're
You're
in a lot
absolutely
better
correct.
financial condition than we were then. And, part of the reason was good budgeting and good financial planning over the course of the last 15 years, and we need to continue to do that. And
I would
part of
agree
that
100%.
is, okay, well, when you've got windfall money,
Yep.
spend it wisely.
Yep.
And if we can get away with that,
Yep.
we should be thinking about those kinds of projects. So,
If I could, Peter, too, just a reminder, I'm on Green Communities Committee now also, and the other night we voted to pass on the next grant round, which was due for September. So our next grant application will be in April. So we've got some time to look at the projects that, part of it was, it'll give us more time to look at the streetlights situation and some other things tied to it. But it also opens up the opportunity for facilities, schools, whoever has projects like your windows, I
Yep.
can't believe they're not eligible for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I know it's been,
Right.
we've
But
brought it up.
Those are opportunities that we need to make sure we don't miss.
How are we doing on op-tempo, call volume, that kind of stuff?
It's about normal. Tracking over past years, we had had a peak year about 5 years ago, then it dropped off. Now it's kind of been in the middle again. Last year, we saw a significant drop for a few months, then it picked up again. This year's been about even. We've seen with the new building at Tri-Town, that occupied the beginning of August. We've been there at least once a week. So it remains to be seen how much activity we see out of that building.
55 and older
Yep.
buildings, right?
70 some odd units.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see that. I gave you the numbers for the potential other project. And I think that's a guesstimate based on what we have already. But, yeah, we're in between. You know, it's been, the EMS side has been steady. Like I said, the EMS, we see we're going further, which again ties up the truck longer, need people to cover the station longer, so that all adds up.
How are we doing on the primary school issue? Is that buttoned up?
The primary school, the old primary,
No, the new primary fire alarm.
from my understanding, when we did the inspection the other day, they are still waiting to do that job.
It hasn't been done.
It has not been completed yet. They're waiting on the contractor. So it sounds like they're gonna be squeezing them in around
School.
the school, yeah. Yeah, system is operational, and everything, but to replace that whole system, I thought it was supposed to have happened a while ago, and Mr. Launder informed me that they're still waiting on the contractor to get in there, so.
And Chief, that's still, at this point, a cold weather issue more than
Yes.
anything?
Yeah, they don't seem to have it in the summertime, it's the cold weather. And it's ghosts. It's, I don't have a good answer for it. Something's expanding and contracting in the cold.
Yeah. But one of the issues that was discussed 6 months ago when we were talking about this on a weekly basis was we wanted to get the work done in the summer when the kids were in the building.
I thought they were doing it back in the end of June, and I found out today that they haven't done it yet, so.
Any other questions for Chief?
Chief, just, what's the size of the department? How many people? What's the overall picture there, personnel? When
We
you talked
have
about EMTs.
currently 8 full-timers, 8 full-time firefighters, plus myself and the administrative assistant, and approximately 35 on-call and per diem firefighters, which they're not there all the time. They get paid an hourly rate when they come in. The per diems get basically their call rate to work a shift in the station. Certain call people that are trained for that. Right now, they cover 96 hours a week, basically filling in around the full-timers on their schedule. And then if there's an overtime shift and the full-timers don't want it, the per diems can fill it as well. So the plan would be for a 9th full-timer next year. That was the plan we had.
Okay.
When I was a kid, we were, I think, an entirely volunteer fire department, or pretty close to it. if I
Technically,
remember.
the chief was full-time from about 1964, 65. Hired the first full-timer beyond him in 1985. I mean, up until 5 years ago, we had 3 full-time people, and it was just day coverage. It was on call. You waited for the call people to come in. And the problem was the call volume kept going up and up and up, and it just started straining that system. And now, we've got the career staff in the building that takes some of that load off. At least they're there to handle a lot of the calls. But we still rely on the call people, because again, it's only 2 or 3 people in the station. That's enough to handle an ambulance call. Any kind of a fire incident or something more significant, or a second ambulance call, we still need all those call people coming in.
I think we're really fortunate to have the call guys and been able to maintain them as we put on the full-time guys. I don't know how many people drive through Groton. They have a sign on the side of the road, on-call firefighters needed.
Yeah,
That's how desperate they are.
yeah. And it's, it never ceases to amaze me how good a job you guys do with what you have. It's,
It's a lot of,
everybody in town has their stories. of,
some
having to
firsthand.
call you. Yeah, some are recent, some are not. But, the fact that with the level of full-time staff that you have, when something does happen, and the people that you have who, you tend to attract people who work from home or in and around town or have small businesses in town, they can get there quick.
Yep.
And it's pretty cool.
The challenge you see nowadays is you don't have as many people that have a second, they got a good second job.
Yeah.
And that's what they want to do. What we're attracting more now is young people who want a career in public safety.
Yeah, they want to work their way in.
And I mean, it's slowed down a little bit. That may pick up. I don't know how much of that's the offshoot of the challenges the police are seeing.
Yeah.
But we still get them, and they're still there. And I have a couple that they have a good job somewhere, and they want to just do it on a part-time basis.
Yeah. It's a good hobby.
I was trying to beat that name away.
Oh, is that, we don't use that?
People used to say, oh, they're
part-time
hobby
profession.
firefighters. No, it's a part-time
Part-time
profession.
profession.
In
Okay,
that, you
I
know.
stand corrected.
Dangerous hobby.
Yeah. Many years ago, you could say that, but yeah, with the amount of training that's required nowadays,
Yeah.
it's a part-time job.
All right.
Chief, I got one quick
Sure.
question for you. It's just because I don't know where we're at. But it may have been before your time or around your time in the department. But when we got the certification for the dry hydrants many, many years ago, to have them considered for insurance purposes as a regular hydrant, do we still have that certification?
That has changed, not for anything on our end, that's changed how ISO rates them. Now they only give you credit out to about, I think it's 1,000 or 1,500 feet. We used to have a credit, I think, for 3,000 feet.
Right.
ISO dropped that quite a while ago. In fact, they're much stricter on dry hydrants and cisterns. They're great with regular hydrants, but they're a lot harder to get them to certify any of those. But they're still out there. We'll
I
still
had the
use them.
question asked me up in New
Yep.
Hampshire where I am, and I was wondering because we were looking at putting a fire pond on my
Yep,
property.
they changed their rating system back about 4 years ago. And now they're a lot stricter. It's a lot harder to get, you can do it, but it's a lot harder to certify a new water site.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank
Yes,
you.
That was a pleasure. Thanks.
All
for coming.
right.
All right.
Take care.
Take care. Story. Next.
You guys will hit.
Sorry?
I have my number.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for inviting me.
You're back to normal?
Semi back to normal, a little bit different. We really never stopped working. We just had to change how we did things there. We did a lot of grab-and-go lunches, one lunch once a week, and like a coffee and donut thing, and like a fun thing on a Friday. We kept that going all year long with funds from the program line in my municipal fund. Had to set its mental health, spend it, because we couldn't hire instructors for anything. So we closed on March 13th, sent everybody home. The staff came in staggered and delivered Meals on Wheels because we couldn't stop that. One of my van drivers delivered because they got let go because there was no van services because doctors weren't seeing anybody. We started bringing them back in again, and I think it was like May or June, very carefully, COVID protocol, of course. We started full-blown outdoor programs. We did Tai Chi in the park. We did all the drive-throughs. Anything we could do outside, we did. And then we started bringing them in socially distanced, but just health and wellness programs, like grief support and an exercise program, things like that that they really needed. No more than 10 people, masks on, the whole 9 yards. So that was going good until November when COVID reared up again and we had to shut everything down. So we started up again, I think, in April, not knowing what to do, and of course, with the vaccines becoming available, and the governor saying, call your local council on aging, they'll get you a vaccine. It's like, how?
Pull one out of the freezer and to the Eagle House.
So we were working with the local Board of Health because they had, for a very brief time, a clinic over at Devon's. And Lunenburg being lucky enough to be able to service 16 people at a time. over there. So we went through this whole, we would book them, Amanda would book them, Pauline would book them, I would book them with Neshoba, and then book them again for their second shot. And then that got pulled away from us, and they wanted to send everybody down to Gillette and places like that, which is absolutely insane. And then, of course, we found a site, COVID Vax Help, which had nothing to do with the government site. So we were referring people to them and helping them over the telephone book their appointments to the local CVS's, and that worked really good, because we had over 100 people on our waiting list that needed vaccines that were 75 and older. And every day something new would happen, so, you know, flying by the seat of our pants, but we got through it. Mostly, the whole staff is vaccinated now, so that's good. Most of the seniors are vaccinated. We don't ask when they come in. So pretty much we are kind of back to normal. We don't see as many people because people are still, you know, concerned, and, you know, as well they should be concerned. But right now, everybody's doing good. And
Have you gotten any questions and/or what are your thoughts in terms of what we can do to help when it comes to boosters as that starts to percolate?
we haven't heard a thing about it. Most likely because the people who we booked with Neshoba Board of Health, I don't know if they will be redoing them, or because the shot's so available at other places right now, if they can just say, I had the Moderna shot, CVS do carry it, I need the booster there. That's probably what will happen.
Okay.
So,
So we're not-
I don't know. Everything's a mystery.
Are you finding your way back to normal traffic and participation?
It's a little slower than it was, and like I said, I said because that's because of the fear of the COVID. I expect it to pick up within the next year. We are changing the way we do things. I had a conversation with Heather, and I've been working with Julie on, I know we spoke about this a couple of years ago, and I wasn't ready for it, of hiring another meal site person to be a head kitchen person, a cook, a menu planner. I wouldn't say nutritionist, but somebody that can handle it. So we're doing that right now, and I'm working with them. We're researching the other COAs to see what they do and how they run their kitchens, because with the mock nutrition food, we don't get any customers. It's just not appealing to them at all, which is unfortunate. So right now, we're doing like a soup and sandwich thing on Tuesdays, because everybody's in-house then. They can still get it to go if they choose, or they can go outside and eat it, because we've revamped the rec area out back with picnic tables and stuff. You know, that's when we get people in, when we do home-cooked stuff. So we're going to ask for another position for FY23. Non-benefit.
Everything good with the facility? We've spent a little bit of money in the facility the last couple of years.
Yep, the entrance and the foyer there, if you notice the unique pitch in the roof, just makes ice dams every single winter, and it sits there, and then it comes through and it ruins the paint in there, it ruins the paint on the walls inside. So this year they got someone out there who rubberized it, and they were out there for about 3 or 4 weeks working. They had to stop in November because it got cold, and whatever they were using for adhesive wouldn't adhere. So when the first nice weather started rolling around again, in the meantime we got more water damage again. But it's fixed now, and the torrential rains we had, like for instance the other day, it was coming right over the gutter. It looked like a waterfall just coming out, and we got no leakage whatsoever. So it's working, so it was money well spent.
Good.
Summer's been a good test on rain.
Yeah, no leaks anywhere in there.
It's waterproof, you know it.
Exactly.
If it isn't, you know that too.
I thought it would come in under the double doors in the front there, the French doors, and it didn't, so we were lucky.
You were making a lot of progress on like that memory cafe. How's that done through this?
Well, we tried a Zoom one, because of course we had to shut that down, and that didn't work very well. And we had entertainment and everything on it, and that didn't work. So we did our first one live last month, and we had 2 people show up, where we would have 20 to 30 before. So, you know, I get it. We did have some assisted livings bringing in people, and they're still like, you know, if we bring anything back, that's not good. So we're actually doing one tomorrow. I expect maybe 1 person to show. You know, just from last time. So I think that's gonna be the gauge tomorrow, to go on hiatus again with that until next spring, maybe, see how things turn out. We were spending a lot of money on that and really doing it upright. We have entertainment and things like that, and we were, you know, one of the biggest ones in Massachusetts, and it's just,
It's too bad.
it is too bad. And my people just don't do Zoom, and
Yeah.
we did lose some of them over the
Do you,
winter.
are you doing outreach to people you've seen before, who you haven't seen recently, or?
Yes, we have our outreach coordinator, Pauline Roy. She does an excellent job. She actually became trained as a certified Shine counselor, serving health insurance needs of everyone. So to navigate people through their health insurance changes when they turn 65, or they're turning 65, or they have to, you know, have questions on prescriptions. She's very busy doing that. We sent out during COVID, I think it was well over 2,000 households, postcards, you know, saying, we're still here, give us a call, here's the number. If you need anything at all, just give us a call, because you can't call. You know. We have well over 3,000 seniors in town, over 60, but we divided up the households so it would be cheaper for the mailing. Pauline calls and checks on people all the time. They call us. We see them coming in now, you know, more. So you get a good eye on people. And when we're doing the grab and goes, you could see them and how they were in their vehicles and stuff like that, and how much they missed the place. And we actually had a group of ladies who would get their lunch and go across the street to Veterans Memorial Park and sit there and eat so they could socialize and see each other. So that's how we've been running.
Good. All right, anything else?
Do you think you need more coming out of this?
Well, definitely, because I did a lot of grant writing. The one thing that I noticed was, in the newer senior centers that are being built, they have beautiful ADA compliable concrete patios. So they were doing their exercise classes outside. I mean, we have a nice rec area, but it's not, you know, it's rough. It's rough. So I applied for a grant the other day to Community Foundation of North Central Mass for $20,000 to help jumpstart going back there, making a nice level patio, ADA compliable to go with our nice new sidewalks, and get more people out there, because if COVID taught us anything, it was you need, more people want to be involved, and you can't do that inside the building. You know, you can only do so many. And if you have nice outdoor things going on, you know, at least 6 months out of the year, it helps a lot. So we're working on that. I've got another contractor coming tomorrow. I talked to 2 other ones. They're gonna do up 3D designs. And eventually in capital plan, the parking lot to the side is supposed to go in at some point. So whatever we do, we can tie it to the parking lot. But time is of the essence, and like I said, we need to do things now.
Any of the funding coming in from CARES recovery monies?
We
being
had that,
considered?
we did have that.
Well, you had the CARES Act, but we have more money coming in now.
Yeah, I haven't looked into that, honestly, because we have, with the formula grant funds that we get from the state every year, well, they've changed that up, where we used to have to spend it down every year. So at the end of the year, you're scrambling, what do I need, what am I going to do? And it's just, you know, you're buying 1,000 stamps, and just to get it down to 0, it's crazy. So now they said you can carry over what you have left over into your next year's funds. just try and get it as close to zero as you possibly can. So I think I had around close to 6,000 left in it. So what we're doing is upgrading our projector system, because, you know, we have a projector, but it sits in the middle of the floor, people trip over the wires. So I've been working with Dan from IT, and we've ordered one to hang from the ceiling, all wireless, with speakers that, you know, face the ground, because that room is cavernous and it echoes. So that's gonna aid a lot with different programs going on, and we can Zoom off of that, because there's a large projector screen that comes down. So, for instance, we did a Wing theater tour over Zoom. And so I hooked it up to the large screen TV, but it was just on my laptop, and the people sat behind me. And we went through the whole Wing Theater and stuff like that on a nice tour, but we'll be able to do stuff like that. The other thing we did with the extra money was buy sound blocking things for the wall, and Roman shades for the windows to help with the sound in there. So it does work, and we're spending it on the right stuff and trying to improve the building, and that's where we're at.
You've always been a master of coming up with grant money.
Oh, don't
I think
jinx me.
Every time we talk, there's this grant and that grant you're after, we did this with this grant.
Well,
Congratulations on that.
my 501c3 group is a great help too, the Eagle House Supporters. You know, I didn't hit them up bad last year because I knew I wasn't, you know, I didn't know where we were going, what we were doing. So they gave us $7,000 last year to use on different programs and stuff, so we were getting reimbursed. And we had other, you know, local church was constantly buying us $100 gift cards for Hannaford, so we could purchase the food and for the grab and goes and stuff like that. And once again, Community Foundation, Central Mass Agency on Aging, you know, what do you want? You want money? The Sheriff's Department would come up with things, and police and fire, we did a turkey giveaway to 30 or 40 Lunenburg residents. So it was like a full Thanksgiving meal that they could take home and cook with the turkey and all the fixings. So they've been a great help too.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
Looking forward to seeing you in February or March.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila.
Keep us up to date on that new position.
Yeah.
Meetings.
Oh, definitely,
It's,
definitely.
Yeah, you know, as you said, you mentioned that a year or two ago, that you were
Right.
ready for it. Now that you are ready,
Well, I didn't want to push it for the special, and I just want to do it right, so I think May is good, and we're working with.
We don't have the money right now, anyway.
Huh?
We don't have the money right now.
Yeah, I'm getting rid.
have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
They'll be in the minutes, by the way.
All right, old business, Finance Committee procedures and goals, document review and approval, everybody's favorite topic. So, I put in an email to you all earlier this week or the end of last week that Tom had basically rewritten the section around the off-budget spending, and I hope you've all had an opportunity to take a look at that. I did have a conversation with Heather on Tuesday on this topic. Actually, it was an email exchange. I had a conversation with her on another topic. Forgot to talk about this, and we had an email exchange on it. And she indicated that she is okay with the language that Tom has proposed. One other minor change that I just made today, following a question that came in from Jay via email earlier this week. In the second paragraph, I suggested changing the word provocative to thought-provoking. I just think it's probably a better choice of words. I'm not looking to provoke anybody, but I'm looking to provoke thought. So, yeah, okay, raise your eyebrows there, Chris. I think some people would probably disagree with what I just said. But in any event, so I do think that that's probably just a minor change, but I think probably fits our intent better from a wording perspective. But other than that, a couple of minor grammatical changes, but other than that, no substantive change. Is there any discussion on that at this point?
No, I like it.
Okay. Does anybody have a motion?
Motion to approve the
Hang on,
goals and procedures.
I have a comment.
Oh,
I was trying to look through this today, and I didn't have the opportunity to write down everything I wanted to write down. But can we change, one thing I maybe is unbudgeted to either like non-budgeted or
where?
anything that says unbudgeted?
Oh, throughout.
Yeah, that just sounds quirky to me.
So,
Because basically you're asking for anything that's not in the operation
so I'm just,
budget.
yeah, so I'm just kind of doing a
Anything
search
that'd
on
be
this right now.
Unbudgeted expenditures or procurements outside of the budget.
Budgeted?
So there are different uses of the word unbudgeted in here. So in the paragraph, following the paragraph that Tom amended, we have the sentence, among these topics we hope to discuss is a prioritized list of unbudgeted needs that may become subjects of grant applications and earmark requests. So you're suggesting that there's a better form of the word unbudgeted
Yeah,
to use?
yes.
And that would be not budgeted?
Well, I said non-budgeted. Or non-budgeted expenses. Or procurements. Grants or earmarks, it's outside of the regular budget.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, in my mind, it doesn't have a substantial change in meaning. But if it's less ambiguous to you, it's fine with me.
Well, how does everybody else feel?
I'm okay with the amendment.
What's your proposed change unbudgeted to what?
Non-budgeted.
Non-budgeted?
So the subtle difference, and it's very subtle,
Yeah.
is unbudgeted is something that is just not in the budget. Non-budgeted, I think, might infer something that we've intentionally decided not to budget. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here, I'm
Well,
not
you have
even
to
sure
take
what
the
I'm
whole-
saying, but.
You have to take the whole sentence into context.
Yeah, so when I'm doing the search and replace, I keep coming to this paragraph. I'm trying to find the other one. Okay.
Merriam-Webster says they're interchangeable.
They're interchangeable.
Unbudgeted or
So,
not
mute
budgeted.
point.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Okay,
That's fine with me.
all right.
Okay. Will you make your motion as amended?
Motion to approve as amended, the goals and procedure document reviewed tonight.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any not in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Special town meeting timeline and calendar, I don't believe there's any change on since the last time we spoke. I don't want to belabor it. I did mention to Chris that I believe we're looking at a public hearing on the 14th of October, and I will be late to that meeting that night. but I would ask that Chris open the meeting and proceed, and I'll be here when I get here.
Just a question, if I happen to not be in town too, who?
I think it would actually go to a coin flip between Tom Baelish and Tom Gray as our
Okay.
clerks. So they're vice chairs, I guess. That's a good question. They can duke it out before the meeting.
There'll be a pretty big, pretty big show, you know. Buy special tickets for that.
Okay, minutes. So we have minutes submitted for the 12th of August. I did note that somebody, and I can't recall who, did make a change or a comment, and I'm not in the document right
Put a
now.
couple of red line notations in there that are still in there. I wanted to leave the original verbiage in there, and then I, in parentheses, put in a corrected version. It was a statement I made to the police chief about comparing the, or as a scenario with the motorcycle
Yep,
that he's looking to purchase, and it was listed in the original minutes
as a cruiser.
as
Yeah,
a cruiser,
okay,
and a little bit of different wording just beyond that. So anything in red needs to come out, in my feeling.
Yep.
Just changing the wording.
okay.
Other than that, I saw no issues.
Any further discussion on minutes? I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from August 12th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
It was motioned by Dave Passio, seconded by Chris Menard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those not in favor, it is unanimous.
Can I ask a really geeky thing?
Knock yourself out.
When we name minutes, can we do year, month, day, so that they show up in order when you're looking for things?
Sure,
Thank you.
Second.
if I remember.
I always change it anyways.
Okay. I appreciate you going in and maintaining my characteristic lack of detail. That's why you're an engineer and I'm not.
Being in Europe taught me that one.
Sounded interesting.
Well, no, it definitely helps when you're keeping stuff in order particularly in Microsoft.
I got a notice that you made modifications in OneDrive, but I never saw anything
I think I just changed the date.
documented that I added or changed anything.
Sometimes it tracks changes and sometimes it doesn't, and I don't know why. I don't know why.
Okay.
Okay, committee reports.
Peter, can I just one quick thing?
Sure.
I just wanted to thank Amanda for
Yeah.
the great minutes. I thought they were very
Yes.
thorough and certainly better than ones I've done in the past.
Big upgrade for some reason.
Yeah, we did have a huge upgrade in the quality of our minutes all of a sudden. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, committee reports. Any committee reports? I'm sure Mr. Passio has at least one.
Let's see, let's start with TCP, Building Design Committee. We had a meeting on Wednesday. We, as of Wednesday, still did not have the contract signed. The chair was confident that it would be completed by the end of this week. There's been some back and forth about a few things that we felt were very important to be added to the scope of work. And of course, this was after it had already been sent to them, and a number, basically that total number, 50,000 being absorbed, 54,000 being absorbed in the original scope of work. So there's been some back and forth on that. Our next meeting in early September, we are going to start tackling what we see we're going to be able to do going into fall special town meeting. We haven't sorted it out completely, but potentially 3 articles. One will be an update article. One would be the yea or nay on the renovation of the existing building. And the third, the third will be a backup to the second one. If that is defeated, Then the third one will be another funding article that will have to do with the tear down and rebuild. We're not going to be at a point where we're going to have enough documentation and documents to be at the point we are at with the renovation at the completion of the second iteration of a apples-to-apples comparison. So there's going to be a need for another complete analysis of the build and go through the whole process that we've already gone through. So there will be another substantial amount of money that will be needed to bring an actual project forward for a tear down and rebuild.
And this is an annual town meeting or a special town meeting event?
We'll know for sure at the next meeting. I think these three are going for special town meeting.
So if we were to vote for let's say a renovation, just for the sake of argument here.
That first article will include renovation and the funding for it. It'll all be in one article.
Okay.
Second one, I'm sorry. First one's the update.
So we don't have that money sitting in a savings account someplace. This is going to have to be a exempted borrowing article if we do that,
I would assume so.
which means there's going to need to be a vote, an election, in addition to a special town meeting vote to support that.
Correct.
Is your expectation that that would happen in tandem, or that would be kicked to the next regular annual town election?
If the article is such that it approves, make sure I get this right, approves funding for the project, then we have a window that we have to meet for an article, a ballot vote. So we would have to call a special election. If
Do you know what that window is?
I don't remember.
Karen, do you know offhand?
I don't know, maybe 45 days?
Then-
I'm not positive.
All I know is
to tell you the truth,
waiting
but
is
it's
tight.
Like you couldn't go to May.
Right.
So my 2 cents on this is, today is August 26th. We've accomplished very little in the last 90 days.
That's correct.
And we think that we're going to accomplish enough in the next 80 days that we're going to have a sufficient enough bit of information to make these kinds of decisions at town meeting, let alone get the citizens to go to a ballot box and vote for it?
Yeah, I don't think I'd like to speak to that at the moment. I
Okay.
disagree with your
In
concerns.
December,
What's that?
and the ballot would be in December with
Right.
some special election.
I mean, in my mind, we've burned so much time on this, like, we should do it right, or as complete as we can, and bring a well-thought-out, complete set of information to town meeting in May, and not kid ourselves that we can do something in the next 80 days.
Yeah, the only problem is that, and again, as I said earlier, if we don't make some type of a decision on what direction we're going at the November special town meeting, then we're still not going to be ready to break ground for whichever choice is chosen for at least another 6 months beyond that.
Oh, I
Because
understand
we're gonna
that,
have
sure.
to go through again.
But I think everybody would understand that. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to basically.
There's a couple of
reform.
different takes out there, and one of them is that, we've been messing around with this for so long, and we've already put $300,000 into engineering and planning and stuff, just get it done, and that feeling is out there with part of the citizenry. The other is exactly what you're saying, don't
Yeah.
rush it, let's
I
because
think,
we have a full proposal for the rebuild, for the renovation. That's a complete proposal. That could go out to bid. But we don't for the other option.
yeah, I mean, I think that there's a myriad of opinions out there.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that there is a majority agreement in any capacity that we go out and spend
Correct. And
a
special
lot of
town-
money.
special town meeting on a couple of those articles, I believe, would require a two-thirds majority, whereas the
Yeah,
town.
I don't think we're at a majority, let alone a
Yeah.
two-thirds,
Uh,
so.
Annual town meeting, it would be just a simple majority of most of them. So that's where that stands. Yes, I've been very frustrated that we didn't hit the ground running after we got the funding for the initial thing. It just, it dragged. The architect, the engineering company has had a turnover in help. We're not going to be working with anybody that we worked with through the first process. So that's going to be another thing that's going to be, how up to speed is this new guy going to be, so on and so forth. So I think we'll have a better handle in September. It's driven me crazy because I've had to do this with a couple of different committees recently and just adamantly push for it and agree that we need to slow down and push our expectations off for anywhere from 6 months to a year on a number of projects. Moving on to parks. We had a meeting, also Wednesday night? Yeah, last night. I don't know, I've had meetings on top of meetings this week. So we've been working on a couple of policy issues. Those are been through their second reads, and one on dogs and parks property. There's still a few things, a couple of questions that the commission would like ironed out before we finalize that. We had a joint meeting with the Board of Health about 10 days ago, I believe it was. And we are working with the Board of Health with funding that they have available to move forward with the first stages of being able to replace the toilet facilities at Marshall Park with funding from outside of the budget. Money that's available and is a pretty substantial number, $104,000 total. And they have authorized $9,500 for soil testing and design of a septic system in anticipation of putting bathrooms at Marshall Park. So that proposal will be, I believe, signed by sometime early next week. And Dillis and Roy will be putting that proposal, or have put the proposal together. They will be putting the design together. We'll be over there with DPW to do some test holes and move forward from there.
Are you confident that if we were to do this, I mean, we've been talking about a master plan for Marshall Park. We've been talking about parking for Marshall Park. We've been talking about bathrooms for Marshall Park. And if we were to do this project, irrespective of a master plan or a decision on the skateboard park or all these other things, is this going to be put in a place that is not going to limit our options or interfere with that other stuff?
Here's how the situation flushes out. There are going to be very limited spots that we're going to be able to put the system in, the septic system itself. Okay, so that's why we're taking this first step. Identify where the system can go, and that will drive the location and positioning of everything else in the park. The toilets themselves could be 500 feet away if we so choose to put them there, and we pump to the septic field. But everybody's in agreement that we need to determine what's going to be the allowable spot and the most logical spot to put the septic system itself, and then work everything else around that. That was one of the things that held us up moving forward with this step that we're stepping into now was, is this going to be if we do it ahead of time, is it going to be a problem? Or could it potentially be in the way of something else we would have rather done? And like I said, it boils down to the fact that because of the ground conditions in that whole section of town, and by the way, the skate park people were over there the other day with the DPW backhoe and did some test holes with, if they go to Marshall Park, they ran some test holes in the location that they've identified as probably the only spot that the skate park could go in. And we had no problem finding ledge.
It's not going to be a septic system there.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
What
So-
about town sewer?
Well, that was my next question.
Marshall Park is not in the sewer district. It was left off the map, and they're fairly confident that there's no stub in the main under Route 2A to even hook up to.
Is any of that prohibitive?
Well, it will delay things a lot, but I'll bring this around. It will delay things a lot because you're gonna have to go through a town meeting to change the map. You're gonna have to dig up Route 2A and cut a stub into a main that's already flowing sewerage to even make a connection. And you're gonna have ongoing costs for the line itself and the cost for sewer. The other side of this issue is the fact that the money that is being offered to accomplish what we're moving forward with right now can only be used for repair of septic systems, which is what this is. There's an existing system on the property that's non-compliant and unusable, so we can, through Title V, we can come up with the best engineering design we can, once it's signed off by the Board of Health, with variances possibly, and then we're good to go. So yeah, there are arguments for sewer, but, the fact that the $104,000 is clearly earmarked for sewer repair only, that's one of the driving factors. And then the fact that it's not in the sewer district and no stub of the main line up the highway.
I mean, ultimately, I guess this is the decision of the Parks Commission and the executive branch. In my mind, the fact that the money is there and it hasn't been spent is not in and of itself a compelling reason to go spend the money. And I mean, I just feel like sewer is there. We could literally change the overlay in November. It'd be a heck of a lot easier than convincing people to go renovate TC Passios in November. This would be relatively procedural to do that. And
Then all of the funding has to be, you gotta come up with the funding to do the entire project.
I understand that, but the entire, so to be clear, the funding that you have is for a septic system, not for toilets.
It's
It
the
is
repair
going to
everything.
go, what's that?
It's to repair everything, the funding that came.
It's
gonna
the
go
entire
as-
system?
It's gonna go as
Soup
far
to
as
nuts?
$104,000 will take us, starting with the system, the piping from the system to the toilets. And if there's still money available, fixtures, and we don't think it'll go far enough to put the building up, but it might. Whatever $104,000 will give us is what we're gonna get.
But only to repair and replace what was previously there. So what did we say? It was like 2 toilets and a shower, we might be able to get it
Yeah,
on either side. So
it's
it can only
been-
do 2 toilets on either side or possibly
Right,
3.
it's been agreed that we can list the flow, and there's some other adjustments they have to do, because Title V actually has specific guidelines for parks, and it was reviewed last night in the parks meeting. It comes down to like 5 gallons of flow per person for parks is what Title V says, for the circumstances that we have there. The challenge is identifying how many people. So, but the other analysis is the comparison to the flows that we believe came out of that original bathroom, with the 2 toilets on each side, shower and sink on each side. And it was agreed in a joint meeting with Board of Health that more or less is equivalent to 3 toilets on each side and a sink on each side. So the flow will be based on those 2 criteria. And the septic system will be designed for up to that flow, but cannot go over as a repair. But we don't necessarily have to put 6 toilets in.
Is there town water there?
Town water comes in from Chestnut Street, yes, and comes all the way out to Let's see, covers all of the ball fields, there's irrigation in all 3 fields. Yeah, and I believe there's water at the, what used to be the snack shack that's there. The electricity comes in from 2A, that's all flagged right at the moment. If anybody
And you're not
knows-
bound to put the toilets where they were before, right?
Most likely not, unless there's a compelling reason to. As I stated in the meeting, those toilets were located there, I think, for 2 reasons back when the park was originally built. Number one, very difficult finding a spot that they could put a system in. And number two, the 90-foot diamond was the only thing there. So that was where the heavy use was, so it was adjacent to the heaviest use in the park. So that's that. I had one other meeting this week, what was it? Oh, Green Communities, I'm sorry. Green Communities met on Tuesday before the Board of Selectmen's meeting. We reviewed a few projects that are still in progress from the previous grant round. And we voted to not try to rush to get submissions in for the very next grant round, which the deadline was in early September or mid-September. So we're now concentrating on next April, and that will be when we submit for the cost of the conversion of the streetlights. And I did make the comment that, so that the committee was aware of the fact that there is a desire to at least look at the possibility of a joint project installing 5G along with the light system. I don't think, the funding wouldn't come from Green Communities, but it doesn't mean the projects can't happen side by side with funding from other sources. So that's in the works. And it also, as I stated to the fire chief, it gives the town departments some extra time to come up with projects that we could submit in April for the public safety building or whatever else we have. That's it.
Any other reports? School committee met last Wednesday. There was a line item transfer basically to move some money from an electric account to an audio-visual account. It was from an electric account to an audio-visual account, as it was listed. Basically, about $800. And there was permission to post of several positions, almost entirely funded by grants, primarily ESSER grants, although there was one additional special education funding grant and a position for a stipended equipment and field manager for the athletics department that would be funded from the revolving account. So basically none of that was coming out of regular recurring budgeted accounts. And that's it. No other reports? All right, and I've lost my agenda.
Public comment.
Like Terry. All right. Public comment. Any public comment? Nobody in the Zoom? Nobody local? Any public comment from the board? Items for future meetings. I don't have an agenda for next week or for 2 weeks from now. I will let you know via email, but we are planning to meet on September 9th and September 23rd. And
We finished department heads now.
no, we're going to do schools on the 23rd. And I don't know who next up. We'll figure that out. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Items for future meetings.
Oh, sorry. Did you have something you wanted to add to that?
I was just wondering, a lot of boards start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to do the same. What are other people's feelings on that?
I would be happy to do it. I'm also happy to not do it. So I guess I'm okay either way on that, but I would be happy to support it if the committee would like to.
A lot of the committees do it? I mean,
Yeah, the school committee and the select board do.
I'm in
I'm open either
Peters.
way.
What's that?
I'm open either way.
Yeah.
Same.
I'm in the same boat, or same tax.
Well, I think if it's something that other committees do and we're all,
It's not universal, it's
Yeah.
2 committees in town. There are some people in town that have vocally advocated for everybody doing it on occasion. Again, I'm okay either way.
I think my personal feeling is as long as it's an in-person meeting or a hybrid meeting, I just don't see it as.
It's very awkward on Zoom.
Yeah, no, I was thinking in person.
Yeah,
Yeah, with a flag.
Board of Selectmen did it for a while over Zoom.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
How I put it.
All right. Well, if you guys are in agreement, and I'd be happy to put it on the next agenda. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.